And good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, around the nation, around the world. You're listening to. No, this is not Coast to Coast AM, and I'm certainly not George Norrie. I'm Tim Roxbury, and host of Supernatural Realm on the VARA radio network. Well, tonight we have a very special guest. His name is Brendan Densmore. Brendan, it's great to have you here. Tell the listeners about who you are and your background with NDEs and your experience.
Okay, thanks for having me on the show. I really like that intro music that you had going. That was awesome. So my name is Brandon Densmore, and I'm a certified spiritual coach and a business consultant for heart-centered people, helping them to manifest their dreams. I had a near-death experience back in 2014 where I died from a heroin overdose. So I don't know how much background information you want to know about this, but I was sexually molested when I was 8 years old, and that kind of was the first chink in my armor, I guess you could say.
Wow.
It gave me really bad self-esteem issues going into middle school, so I was already damaged, going into middle school, and I was made fun of really bad by the kids. Maybe they could sense that I had self-esteem or confidence issues. Raised in an alternative religion that kind of made me stand out a little bit to the kids. So made fun of all throughout school, dropped out in the 9th grade. And I had my first near-death experience at age 21, where I was in a really bad fight and got the crap kicked out of me, basically. I was kicked in the face 3 times with a guy wearing steel-toed boots. Doctor said that if there had been 3 more pounds of pressure, his boot would have gone into my brain, killing me. And I didn't have any kind of like wild experience from that, except it was just total blackness, blackout, nothingness. But it caused me to question my identity.
Interesting.
Up to that point, I had really believed that I was stupid, that I was going nowhere in life. And those beliefs, I started examining those beliefs and questioning those beliefs, and realized that they were false beliefs. They weren't actually true. So I was a high school dropped out in the 9th grade, and went back to school, got my GED, then enrolled in a community college program and went to a summer-long intensive program at Vassar College.
Wow.
Yeah, and I took 2 Vassar courses in a 6-week period and got a 4.0 GPA, perfect grade point average. I aced both classes. Not bad for a high school dropout who thinks that he's stupid, right?
Awesome.
So it was a false belief that I had adopted about myself. And after that, I applied to Vassar full time and received a full scholarship, where I graduated with a philosophy degree. But what people didn't know during this whole educational journey is that I was hopelessly addicted to opiates. So when I was 14 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease and sacroiliac spondylitis. And Crohn's disease is like arthritis of the intestine, and sacroiliac spondylitis is arthritis of the spine. So I was in a lot of pain, and I was put on opiate medications at age 14. And they say that your brain doesn't even fully develop by age 24. So these opiate substances like were involved in the neural pathway development, but anyways, when I had to get clean, right, from the opiate substances, I had to learn how to tie my shoelaces again. Wow. That's how bad it was. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have something similar to Crohn's. I have a toxic megacolon.
What is that?
It's when the part of the large intestine dies off, and you have a tendency to get blockages, and the megacolon keeps growing, and it can cause problems. It gets bigger, and then part of it and gets blocked, and it dies off, and then it has to be resectioned again.
Ouch.
And my colon surgeon told me, he said, the only thing that he can do now for me is totally remove my large intestine if I would continue to have problems again.
Yeah, they do that sometimes for people with Crohn's as well.
Mm-hmm.
But that sounds extremely painful.
It is. Yeah, I guess I might have been born with it, because they said when I was younger, actually 20 some years ago, 4 years ago, they said I had Hirschsprung's disease. And I think that's something similar to toxic megacolon. I think it's one of the symptoms of it. And so it's something I've dealt with all my life.
Yeah, it can be difficult dealing with chronic illness,
Mm-hmm.
but there are treatments available. I know a lot of people that I work with actually have chronic illnesses, and I would just encourage people not to give up hope that they're finding something that works for you. So, any other questions or comments so far?
I have I just have a little bit more with the background. I'm curious. Any brothers and sisters, father and mother together? Like, what was that family dynamic coming up as a child? And how long, like, when did you start with the pills, which led presumably to the bigger things and the heroin and all that sort of thing? And how long did that last? How long were you addicted to these opiates?
Sure. So I was raised by my mother, and my mother and father were never married. I have two brothers on my father's side, and I was an only child with my mother.
Are you from Pennsylvania? Where are you from?
It's funny you asked that, but I'm from Maine.
Maine.
I'll
be going to Maine in 2 weeks. I'm going to vacation up here, actually.
Oh, it's gorgeous up here. So
yeah.
Welcome. It's a good time. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness.
Ah, okay.
So that might shed some light on my background. And then I was put on the opiates at age 14.
By pharmacologically, though, not by some experimental desire from a 14-year-old per se.
Right. But what I discovered was that the opiates didn't just treat my physical pain.
That's great. I can't believe it.
They treated my emotional pain too. Because I mentioned before, I was made fun of really bad by kids in school. I was sexually molested. And I'd take the opiates, and they would make me feel better emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Detach you from your reality, right? Suppress your ability to emote and deal with the abuse, presumably, you were going through. That makes sense.
How were you ultimately able to break away from that addiction?
Well, I had when I overdosed from the heroin. So what people didn't know was that I was addicted. And another question you asked was, how long was I addicted? So it's like age 14 to like 33, 34.
Oh wow, gee, so almost 20 years. Wow.
Yep. And then I died from the heroin overdose. I was in my mother's apartment, full of anxiety, waiting for this guy to show up. I'd been in withdrawals, a pattern of going into withdrawals. I would take too much of my prescribed medication, and then I'd run out, and then I'd have to get more, right? So I'd get it from friends or people that I knew. And I was waiting for such a person to arrive, and they finally show up, and finally the nightmare's over, and I do some of the heroin, and everything calms down. My mind was going nuts, the anxiety of it. And that all calmed down. It felt really good. I was able to collect myself, and finally the nightmare's over. And then I realized I was passing away. And then it was like that. I was standing next to my body, looking at my dead body on the couch and wondering what the point of my life had been.
Wow.
How long were you dead for?
I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. There was nobody else there to tell me. Not sure.
So,
What do you think made you come back? Come out of
Well, I was shown a couple things. So I was in the apartment. I was wondering what the point of life had been. Had all these experiences, going back to school, getting into college, winning a scholarship. What was the point of all that? And I felt a presence in the room. And then I was shown two things. I was shown all the people that were affected by my death,
Wow.
the grief, the funeral, the friends, the family, and in particular, my mother finding my dead body.
Hmm.
And it was all discolored. I was all discolored, just a dead corpse with pus running out of my mouth. And she came in and she said, my baby, my little baby boy, my baby boy, my baby boy.
Interesting.
Then I was shown a future reality that could have been. All the people that I could have met, the friends that I could have had, the accomplishments that I could have achieved. And it was like I was shown each one of these things. And then it said, that's not going to happen. That will never happen now. That will never happen now. Image after image after image. All the people that I would never be there to support and to help, the family that I would never have, the woman that I would never marry, all of that stuff. And then I was brought all of a sudden back in the room, standing there next to my body again. And I heard a voice, and it said, in a very matter-of-fact, normal voice, said, now your life is over and you wasted it. And at that point, I was just in shock, and I begged to come to live. Like, I will do whatever it is necessary to overcome this addiction. I will take whatever steps are demanded of me. Please send me back. I cannot let my mother find my dead body and go through that grief. She had all those memories of raising me as a little child. And all of a sudden, bam, I'm back in my body and I'm gasping for breath.
Wow. So I guess in our reality, that was your life review.
I guess so. It's kind of, but it was like a future.
Yeah.
But it was like a life review. But I didn't see anything from my past. It was like a future life review. And then, right after that, I called crisis phone number and went into a 7-day detox. And it was hell. It was like a living hell. Unable to sleep. My feet in the bed, in the hospital bed, just going like this.
Oh, wow.
Uncomfortable, always, like nonstop. And at one point, the doctor wanted to put me on an opiate replacement therapy. And I said, no, I don't want that, because I was thinking, I'd get addicted to this opiate replacement. And he said, do you realize, Brandon, that you need to reconsider? That it's a 98% probability that you will return to the opiate substance when you get out of this place. And I said, I guess I'm one of the 2%. No, thank you. And never touched it again. This was back in 2014.
What about, I know there's programs here in our county. There's actually 2 methadone clinics where addicts go and get the methadone. It's supposed to, take that craving away. I don't know.
I'm not a doctor. I don't have any medical training whatsoever. So I can only speak from my own personal experience. I'm glad I said no. However, I was on an opiate replacement therapy when I took that was what I was prescribed, an opiate replacement therapy for my pain, methadone. So, and I was addicted to it.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievably like a living hell to come off that substance. I can't tell you, but after I went through that 7-day detox, had to learn how to tie my shoelaces again. But then I had to go through the spiritual refinement process to face my inner demons, basically, so that I wouldn't go back to the opiates.
I had a neighbor that was an extreme alcoholic. I mean, he would drink. He would drink the hard stuff, and I would like go over when he was, in a really drunken state, and I would talk to him. And to this day, he's been sober for what, 3 years now, Mommy? And he thanks me every day for helping him and being his friend and helping him through all that.
That's wonderful that he had you in his life as a support. A lot of people don't have positive, influence like that.
Yeah. And he praises. He told my mom the other day. He said he's very grateful and happy that I was able to become his friend and to help him through that time in his life.
Awesome.
Damon, do you have any questions for Brandon?
Yeah, I want to return for a minute back to the NDE and the mechanics of it. Mm-hmm. Were you able to differentiate as to whether or not you had a true OBE where you were objectively observing your body as it was going through that? Or do you think, because the second part of your talk on it sounded like you spent that time was your mind's eye, or the imaginal inwardness of your mind's eye per se. So not a classic OBE per se, where you're floating around a room and you're picking up tangible things that are in the room, that when you come back to life, so to speak, you're able to confirm it in some way, and you consequently prove that you basically disembodied there for a short period of time. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Did you ever think about trying to differentiate between the two? And do you think you were doing one or the other? Was it a combination, or what do you think about the mechanics of all that in retrospect?
I'm not really sure. It may have been an inner vision. But and as I remember now, back on the experience, it's a little bit fuzzy, like a past memory can be.
Sure.
But at the time, it was very, very vivid and detailed. Like when I was standing next to my body, looking at myself, it was like I was literally out of my body looking at myself, standing there. But there's no way that I could confirm it substantially. When I came to, I wasn't interested in that. I was just interested in, getting help. But there's no way.
Okay. That's fair enough. I was just curious about the mechanics of that, because there's tons of literature, obviously, on NDEs, OBEs, all these things. And I think sometimes when people talk, in my opinion, they don't differentiate well enough to make suggestions as to what they were, possibly actually experiencing, whether or not it was the inward imaginal eye, so to speak, or literally something repeatable or tangible, like people describe out-of-body experiences, where they actually collect tangible evidence that can be confirmed after the fact, where they're, the types of things where no one else could possibly know that had they not had an out-of-body experience, that sort of thing.
Well, the government's been using that kind of technology for decades now. And
right.
Brandon, do you think that there's a lot of similarities with people's near-death experiences? Similarities?
Yeah, from what I've seen and read, I would say that there is, and the common denominator is how I think how is it meaningful in the person's life, and how did it change their lives? Because there's a certain kind of wisdom, I think, that's trying to be communicated. Mm-hmm. And there are channels that are exclusively dedicated to near-death experiences. And if you just watch through these videos, it starts to become pretty mind-blowing. about the messages that people are bringing to the table from having these experiences. But the like with mine, my message is, to become your own best friend instead of your own worst enemy. Like, so often we're critical of ourselves and we talk down to ourselves and we're pretty mean to ourselves with our own inner dialogue. So if we can learn how to talk nicely to ourselves, to say nice things about ourselves, just like you would your good friend, that's what I would like to see happen, not only for myself, but for many people in the world.
What's your feelings on people that constantly beat themselves up, like saying they're stupid or they can't do anything? I have and it's a friend that does that every time he does something. He makes a mistake and he criticizes himself. He yells at himself all the time. He's like, "I'm so stupid. Why can't I do better?"
It's pretty common. I think it's more common than we tend to realize. That inner dialogue is very negative and we're harsh with ourselves. But if we're harsh with ourselves, how can we be really kind to other people?
Right.
And I would like to see the human race to evolve to a higher level of consciousness. And that might sound fancy, but really what it is, self-compassion.
Right.
Just being nice to yourself with what you say to yourself, what you do for yourself, and then extending that to other people. Like, imagine a world where people were talking nice to themselves and were, giving themselves a pat on the back, not in an egotistical way, but like they're there for themselves. They're in their own corner and they're confident, and then they can lend a hand to somebody else who might be struggling.
That means a lot to somebody who's struggling, doesn't it, Brandon?
It does. And we tend to run around stressed out, and we go from one thing to the next, and we're all in our mind. It's all ego. We're not able to just be at peace, to feel comfortable in our own skin, and to be fulfilled and happy in this life, in the here and now.
Damon, question, comment?
No, I think it's great stuff. I think it's a great message. Self-compassion is woefully underestimated, especially in the West. I think you're suggesting essentially a lot of Eastern sort of concepts, transcending the ego, living in the here and now, having a little bit of self-compassion so that you can project that onto others and that sort of thing. I think those are great messages that we need over here in the West. I'm curious, those ideas, did you come up with those on your own, or did you figure these things out philosophically when you were studying and introducing yourselves to other religions and things of that nature?
Yeah. Well, at age 21, when I was in that fist fight, I started questioning my identity. I read every book I could get my hands on spirituality and self-development and stuff like that. And in college, I studied philosophy, Eastern, Western, all kinds of different types of philosophy. So I had come across a lot of these concepts, but it wasn't until, that I experienced it. And I went through a 12-step program, Alcoholics Anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, it talks about letting go of resentments, facing your fears, setting right the things that once went wrong, things that maybe you did in the past that you can contact a person and try to make things right, apologize. But in college, I was aware of a lot of different kind of spiritual type concepts. I've always been kind of fascinated by that kind of thing, paranormal, spiritual, that kind of stuff. Dharma, karma, Eastern religions. So I am familiar with that, but there was a long time that I didn't experience it. I wasn't practicing it. I was just exploring it.
Brandon, do you listen? Do you meditate? And do you think that helps you?
Meditation definitely helps. And a lot of people are like, well, how do you meditate? And how do I know I'm doing it right? And I can't find the time to do it. It's really simple. The form that, I mean, there's obviously a lot of different forms and a lot that's been written about meditation. But if you sit down on a pillow or even on the bare ground and you sit there like a regal human being, right? And you quiet down and you're using your will to make this happen. Just simply sit, to say nothing, to do nothing, and to just breathe, and to exercise your self-control to do that. Even if it's for a minute, you're meditating. That's it. But people are like, well, I don't know if I'm doing it right. Isn't it supposed to be more than this? It doesn't have to be more than this. You just sit there and you exercise your nobility as a noble human being by choosing to do nothing, choosing to just to sit there and breathe and to be centered and in the moment. That's meditation, and it's simple, and it does help from personal experience to quiet the mind, to release anxiety, to relax yourself.
And that's one thing I found with these, with going through the COVID-19 pandemic, where I think it forces people to look inward and maybe to focus on meditation and grounding, even before, maybe they didn't do it before, but I think maybe it forced people to look inward at themselves and see what's really going on within them.
That could be scary.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like with Alcoholics Anonymous, when your fourth step, you take a personal inventory. Mm-hmm. And it's like, have you guys ever seen The Never-Ending Story? An 80s sci-fi movie?
Yeah. Is that the one with the cool-looking puppets and the sort of flying dragon thing or whatever?
Yeah.
Is that what it? Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. With a little boy that sort of whimsically goes along with his dragon thing or whatever. Yeah, I'm having flashbacks. Yeah, I remember that. I do remember it. The gist of it, though, I don't remember.
It's kind of, eye-opening if you rewatch it as an adult.
Oh, yeah.
But the main character of that movie has to go through 3 challenges.
I remember, yeah.
In order to defeat the nothingness. Right? And the second challenge is you have to go into like this cave and look into a mirror and see your true self. And the luck dragon and the little elf man are talking to each other about this second challenge because they know that the main character is going to go on to this challenge. And the luck dragon's like, well, that doesn't sound so bad. And then the little elf is like, no, you don't understand. Brave men look into the mirror and find out they're cowards. Beautiful people look into the mirror and find out they are ugly. Then he goes on and on. Most men run away screaming. And then the scene changes.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah,
I do vaguely remember this movie, too.
Mm-hmm.
That would be worth a rewatch. A lot of times those, well, even something like Pinocchio or any of those classics, they have some deep meaning to them metaphorically, But essentially, they all point to Jungian shadow work. You're probably familiar with him. I mean, any type of work requires a certain inwardness and an honest self-honesty, that an unpacking, if you will, and a facing of the demons and the shadows of your of your being, and that consequently softens them and allows them to coexist with you in a more harmonious way. It's just that most people never get to that work. They don't want to face those sorts of things about themselves, and that's probably the most difficult thing, in my opinion, when you encounter people with immense strife and histories of abuse and so on. And convincing them to do that and take the time to, I mean, you guys talked about meditation. I always think of just look at what we call ourselves. We're human beings first before we're human doings. The problem is that people are always doing something to distract themselves, as opposed to just being a human being, which implies you're not doing anything at all. You're just being, with a capital B, if you will. But it's interesting, though. I'm going to have to rewatch that movie, though. I haven't seen that in a long time. That was
And what's that phrase where spiritual beings having a human experience?
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. I heard a talk at one point years ago, and the speaker made that point. He says, just consider yourself what we call ourselves. That's all you really need to find. We're so caught up in doing, busy distractions. They can be pleasant distractions too. They don't necessarily have to be the habits of alcoholism or drug use and so on. They can just be, somebody that can't stop, I don't know, donating the charities to the point where everything else around them is falling apart. They can be things that are viewed as benign or even great deeds as well. I've always found that balance is a key in all of that, or temperance, if you will, in any sort of practice. Otherwise, you run the risk of having a problem.
Yeah, and it's encouraged, in our society. How do we define success?
Right.
And we're given these definitions of success by the mainstream media, and they're just kind of handed to us on a silver platter, and we eat it up without really thinking about it. But so if my definition of success means that I have to be busy 24/7, hopping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next with no time to think, that's what I'm going to do if I want to be successful. But we're just we're bombarded with images of what we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do. But what we need to do is quiet down a little bit and determine for ourselves, what is success? What do we want with our lives? But we can't quiet our mind. You know what I mean? We live in this fast-paced society, instant gratification. But it's useful to quiet down and to maybe do some journaling or some meditation, and that can help. I know it has, at least in my case.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
How many years have you been, how many years have you been sober with all this?
Jeez, since 2014.
That's not bad. So about 9 years then.
Yeah. I started out being a sponsor, helping people. I had another spiritual experience that helped reinforce the direction I was going, but there was a long process. Stuff still comes up, fears, difficulties in life still come up. But I have more tools now, and I've done a lot of inner work throughout that time period. But being of service to others, having a deep meaning. Like when I went through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I became an agent of the divine, right? Or someone who is directed by God, whatever you want to call a higher power, a divine intelligence, a beneficent intelligence, something that wants the best for people. Love, compassion, whatever you want to call it, an energy, an intelligence. But anyways, so going through these 12 steps, I became someone who is aligned with that power and who is trying to carry out its work on the earth. So that gave me this profound sense of meaning, a profound purpose for existing, right? So I no longer, that strengthened me to keep going and to keep going. I started sponsoring others in Alcoholics Anonymous. Then that transformed into, I was going to create a nonprofit. That didn't work out. So then I went ahead and created a for-profit coaching consulting business, which has worked out wonderfully. And now I'm in a position where I can really help other people, and I love it.
Brandon, I know a lot of, AA's meetings, they talk about a higher power. What's your thoughts and your feelings of what a higher power is, and what's your spiritual concept of a higher power?
There's a place inside of me somewhere that is calm. And when I tap into that, I'm able to bring that calmness out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, I'm not really a religious person. There's a million definitions of God, right, and a lot of different concepts of spirituality. And we could talk about this for days and never
Mm-hmm.
finish.
Right.
But it's something that I tap into within myself, that I think it doesn't just exist within me, it exists out there as well. And just tapping into that kind of an energy of compassion, love, calmness, sincerity, authenticity, non-judgment. For me, that's the higher power.
Mm-hmm.
It's the energy of those things at work in the world and within myself.
With your NDE, has that brought you to a relationship and a full meaning of what reality and what the afterlife really is?
No. I don't have, there's still a lot of questions that I have about what happens when we die. Where do we go? I was never shown heaven or hell, for that matter, or any other dimensions other than this future reality and the people that were mourning my death. So I still have a lot of questions about that. But I do believe that we go on.
Having that experience, have you become more spiritual?
I would say definitely. And it's gotten me through, and it's helped me to rid myself, of a lot of fears, a lot of negative thinking, a lot of resentment, anger. I've been able to kind of flush that out of my system by doing spiritual practices.
Are you afraid of death?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, I'm not either, because I've pretty much been there and done that. I tell people that all the time. I'm not afraid. I know where I'm going, and I'm satisfied with that. There's no fear anymore.
Yeah. I feel like when I had that near-death experience, I was shown what I was needed. I was shown what I needed to see,
mm-hmm,
so that I could come back and help people. But I feel like that I did die, that I was standing next to myself, literally. And I think that we do go on in some way, shape, or form. I've always wondered about ghosts and things like that,
mm-hmm.
disembodied spirits and things. And then there's all of this talk of a light and people fly into the light. And I'm curious about that stuff. I'd like to learn more about it. I'm learning more every day. And I'm curious to find out what happens.
And before I became a radio host, I was a paranormal investigator. I had my own team for a few years, and I've caught some pretty extraordinary things. That I've got apparitions. I've got disembodied voices, Class A EVPs that were very, very clear on my voice recorder. That there's no way anybody in the room could have been talking at that time.
Wow. So what do you guys think about life after death?
I think we go on. I think we evolve. I I'd even think believe in reincarnation somewhat too.
I think with my studies over the years, I have a degree in philosophy too. Um, I've pretty much studied my entire life. I have a family now, so I don't have a lot of time to sit around and read a lot of text like I used to. I suspect that there's an aspect of all these sentient entities, if you will, that does go through some sort of evolutionary process. I'm not so sure that the the personality or the personae, the collectivity of personae that we comprise of here in this body as we are goes on at all. I think it's more like tendencies and proclivities energetically that you collect over lifetimes that might somehow become further and further refined towards some approximation of what one would consider definitionally God, which fundamentally by definition you can only approximate that. You can never fully know it just by default. But I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I don't see myself as an ego coming back. There's a little bit of evidence out there that people can look into their past lives or get glimpses. Some of the sages and adepts of the East and even the West, some of the Christian mystical monks like Eckhart, Miser Eckhart, right, Swedenborg, Søren Kierkegaard, people like this, from a testimony perspective, have suggested that they were able to get glimpses into these things that they felt were confirmational and some sort of a evidentiary manifest of their past lives or whatnot. But I just don't think we have collectively enough evidence to make it a meaningful sell, obviously, to humanity proper. It's all interesting stuff. But going back to I just want to make a quick comment since we're talking about reincarnation, everyone here is learning. I always look at life as a big classroom. No matter how many PhDs or doctorates or books you read, nobody knows anything for the most part. We're all just trying to figure this out. But I used to think, like you two made a comment about death, and I used to think the same way. And I'm 46 years old now, and I thought I did a lot in life in terms of unpacking different philosophies and religions and practices and so forth. But I recently had an experience, which I don't want to detail too much, but it essentially was led to a state of severe ego death, and I was destroyed. There were still aspects of myself that were desirous of holding on to whatever this is, this incarnation, this life. I have children, this, that, home and job or whatever. So I was squashed. And that was aspects of my ego and things at a very deep level that I realize that I still have to work on myself. Because I think it's one thing in saying, oh, I don't fear this, I don't fear that, but that presumes, I think, that you kind of know what's going to happen. And I would still challenge most people that if you really feel that way, do you really know what's going to happen? Because I don't. And, and I try to practice service and compassion towards others all day long because of what I do as a job, as a therapist. But I can tell you right now, if confronted with a premature death, I probably wouldn't do well. Even though intellectually, from an egotistical perspective, I'd like to tell myself I'd do totally fine, like I have no fear of death. But in reality, you know, like I said about a year ago now, I was basically told otherwise because I had an NDE of a sort too, which resulted in the foundational uh, the boundaries of my persona were just melting away into nothingness to the point where I had nothing to grasp or hold on to at all. Just little infinitesimal sort of, it was like being lost in a tsunami and being tossed around like a meaningless corked bottle or something. So, but that's my 50 cents to add to this conversation right now. I was humbled by it in a word. Definitely humbled, and my ego was certainly put in check, and back to the drawing board, if you will. So, but that's my thought on that. Yeah. So
Damon, I've known you a few years, and I never ever sensed that you had an ego. I never sensed that
I
at
think
all.
we all do, Tim. I think I don't think you could do anything if you didn't have an ego. I mean, by definition, you'd be sitting on a rock and wouldn't even move. Then maybe you could say this guy doesn't have an ego. I don't know. But I mean, I think everything that we do implies some degree of stroking of some semblance of structure, which you would define as an ego of some sort. You know, like I'm a radio host, I'm a therapist, I'm a this, I'm a that. Are you really that? Probably not. I mean, we're far beyond these little tiny definitions that we attribute to ourselves and write about ourselves and talk about ourselves. And when in reality, it's kind of scary out there, because if you face the mega shadow of isness, the isness of your nature, it can be foreboding. It can be very nothingness is very difficult, I would argue, if you approximate that. If you approximate the void or emptiness, now the literature would suggest otherwise, specifically in the East. Many sages suggest if you get over a certain threshold, it's like nirvana. But getting over that event horizon, so to speak, from my perspective as a Westerner, not growing up in an ashram somewhere in India, it's not easy to do, because we're taught the opposite. We're taught to build stuff and employ linear logic and cause and effect and this and that and individualism and separateness and all these concepts that are in contrast to Eastern things like impermanence, interconnectivity, interdependence. Now, both sets of concepts are needed for humanity to evolve, in my opinion, but the question is, how do you integrate the two to get along so that you can build a more meaningful humanity, a more meaningful individual, a more meaningful life? But
Brandon,
I don't know.
your thoughts, Brandon?
Interesting questions. And the unknown is always kind of frightening, and maybe that's built into our genetics as being animals who've gone through a process of evolution. The unknown is kind of a scary place, right? Because maybe there's a monster there that's going to eat you. But it's it doesn't have to be scary, though, necessarily, because maybe it's just a furry little animal that wants to cuddle. You don't know until you go into that event horizon, until you penetrate. Then things become clear. And so is it worth being afraid all the time of how am I going to die? What's going to happen after death? It's almost like worrying about something that you have absolutely no control over.
Right.
So why worry about whether or not, there's a life after death when I don't have any control over it? but I have the evidence of what's happened in my life, like the positive things that have happened after this near-death experience. And that, to me, it's not the experience itself that really has the power. It's the result of it, or the fruit that it bore, what it's done in my life. That's what gives me a confidence that that we do go on, a faith that we do go on. And, you know, whether or not it was a vision, I can't substantiate it. I can't prove it, that I really did die and I was outside of my body. I have faith that it happened. I know what I experienced, and I know the positive, beneficial result of it.
Damon?
But Damon, maybe that's why you had that. Maybe you needed to have that experience of being tossed around in a giant tsunami.
Oh, I would do it again.
For some reason.
I would do it again. I plan a lot of things and seek out these things in a almost like in a competition like fashion, because I do believe in the concept of evolution, but yet in the same respect, I don't believe you need to do anything at all. So whatever that is. So you do have to, there is a doingness, a sadhana, if you will, that you have to go through in order to unpack all these things that you think you need to do. And that's the irony of the whole thing. But I guess, you know, our thirst for control of whatever this is kind of what gets in the way. You know, I almost feel like you would really have to let go of a lot to approximate the void, if you will. We'll just call it the void, God, emptiness, nirvana. You could call it all these different things. Christ consciousness, you know. But I don't think it's an easy thing to do, because from my perspective, I have children, I have a house, I have a job, I have all these different things. You know, I almost feel like, and I felt like this for years, I've always felt almost like I was a monk or a priest or something, or that's what I should have been, because I don't really want anything, but I'm in this game, so I have to participate, but I really don't want to do anything, and I don't need anything. At least that's what I tell myself, even though I have all these things, right? So for me, it's hard, you know, because I do have a pull or a desire.
What exactly is hard?
Letting go of daily responsibilities, letting go of helping other people. You know, all these things stroke my ego, because I have to be a dad. That's an ego. I have to be a therapist. That's part of an ego. All these things I'm participating in, when in reality, I'd be content on a rock in the middle of nowhere with a whole lot of nothingness. And one day that may be, but I just think that I know these things don't need to get in the way, because we talked about meditation a little bit, and you can get to the point where you're meditating nonstop and you're still involved in all these activities as well. So some of that has to do with just letting go of trying to control the outcome of all these things, I guess, from a psychological perspective, maybe.
Maybe what you really need to do is find a balance in it all and everything.
Probably right, Tim. Yeah, probably right. Probably right. Yeah, it's interesting stuff, the fun stuff. I'm enjoying it, parts of it, when I have time to do things like this show and meet interesting people, you know. But I think
Martin Heidegger,
one of my favorites. Yeah,
was talking about that we have kind of a dual nature, Das Sein and Das Man.
Yeah.
but it's like that the ego, like going and doing things and acquiring things, and you have an identity. I'm a dad. I have a
Sure.
job, etc. That ego is part of our nature, right?
Right.
It can never be abandoned completely. For
Right.
me, I realize that in my own personal philosophy, and it's like, but keeping it kind of in check,
Hmm.
like a balance between the ego and non-ego.
Exactly.
Not letting the ego completely dominate
Overpower.
in my life.
Yeah.
Just total domination, total control. Um,
Yeah. And
balancing
maybe,
that out with the beingness,
yeah, I think I think all spiritually inclined people do seek that, the beingness. If maybe sometimes you alluded to this in the very beginning of your conversation. I'm probably my number one self-critic. I've been like that my whole life. I too was told I was stupid over and over and over and over again as a child, um, by my own parent. And so that probably compelled me to do all the things that I did afterwards, academically and so on, which is fine. I've forgiven all that situation a long time ago. But there's a concept by the integral thinker Ken Wilber. He uses the term trans a lot in a lot of his verbiage, and he talks about transcending the ego. And in doing that, when you find your place in a transegoic position, it's not that you've divested, crushed, or quelled the ego. The ego is still part of you. You've just transcended it and went beyond it. It's not something that's hierarchically dominant anymore that you're serving with any degree of intensity that would get in the way of you being able to pierce the veil and rest in that void, if you will, or approximate God, if you will. I think that's the key, or the struggle, right? At least that's what it is for me. Because you always think you need to be doing this or doing that, and you really don't. It's all there anyway. It's at hand. It's just whether or not you're able to tap into it with some degree of consistency and stay there, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with everything.
maybe not putting so much pressure on ourselves all the time. It's like we never get a break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, this is my meditation with you two guys here tonight. I mean, the reality is, I'm very plugged into, doing the things like you said, the to the TV and the news and all this garbage, and it's all garbage, but it's difficult to evade. When you're plugged into it, when you choose to plug into the system, it's difficult to unplug. Especially when other people are depending on you, and other people that are depending on you they have needs, real needs. They need you to go kill the deer, and they need you to make the cheese or whatever. Like, you have to do something. You kind of have to plug into, unless you've become some homesteader, like out in the middle and my knife skills aren't that good. So, what are you going to do with all that? I don't know. Interesting stuff. Well, what do you do out of curiosity? Like, do you have any kids? Do you? I know you said you have a consulting business. I presume a lot of people contact you because of your experience, your story. They probably feel comfortable with you because you've went through the trials and tribulations that they're, embarking on or whatnot. So, like, how are you doing with everything?
Yeah, I've got a 9-month-old baby.
Oh, great. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. And running a business, it can be demanding. It can be difficult to balance, working on your business, helping clients. And on the other hand, you have your family life and you work at home. So it's a little bit difficult, balancing the two. to be perfectly honest. But I'm learning. It's a process, you know. There's always insights that are happening. But giving yourself a pat on the back for doing it. You know, you're taking care of your family. You deserve a pat on the back for that. And you've done a good job. And you deserve, you know, to rest sometimes when you need rest. You deserve to be a happy person.
I think that's a great message. I think too many people like us, at least from my perspective personally, don't really think that way. Who's your biggest influence spiritually? Who would you pick? Who would you pick? 3 people out of a hat. Who really touched you over the years? People you've read, listened to. Out of curiosity for us.
I'd say Jesus.
That's a good one.
Buddha. And Wittgenstein.
He was good too. The word is never the thing in and of itself. I remember that's a one idea that stuck with me, that all these words that we use are only approximations of what we're trying to impart as a energetic message, if you will.
That was a key for me, like clearing up so much misunderstanding.
Yeah, I think it's a great one. Great thinker, a great philosopher, great logician. But that was the cardinal principle idea off the top of my head. The word is never the thing in and of itself. And when you think about that, it changes the whole game of these dialogues and conversations that we have. You don't take them.
That's why God, there's so many terms.
Yeah, I mean, this is why you don't take these things too seriously. Otherwise, you sometimes you just got to laugh through it, and it is what it is.
I need to let you guys go. I need to get to my baby.
Oh, short interview tonight. All right. Yeah.
Brandon, hey, how can people get a hold of you?
Brandon Densmore. You can look for me on Facebook. It's BRANDEN Densmore. Or you can email me, coachbrandondensmore@gmail.com.
Hey, Brandon, we'll have to do this again sometime. It's been great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Loved it.
Loved it too.
It's like I feel like we're sitting around a campfire. We need some marshmallows, hot dogs, and we're good to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's all. So are you?
Great about this.
Hey,
I love it.
before you leave, you live in Maine?
Correct.
Are you near Bar Harbor, Arcadia National Park?
Pretty close.
Interesting. I'll be up there in 2 weeks. Maybe I'll say, maybe I'll shoot you.
Maybe we can get together.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd like that. We can have a chat. Small world.
Absolutely. Give me a holler when you come up here. We'll do something.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
Thank
you, Brandon.
Thanks for having me on. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Dave McKee, stay a few minutes.
Yep, I'll stay on with you. How's it going? Where's my pineapple tomatoes? You know what though? Nothing's growing right now. There's no rain.
I know. Is it supposed to rain?
No, I don't think so. We're not from what I see in the weather. You know, looking for work every 5 minutes. Yeah, I'm taking the kids up to Maine. We're going to see some wells, do a little bit of fishing. We're staying on an island. It's 10 square miles. There's only 70 residents on it. But if we get a gig or a show, I'll be doing it from Maine. That'd be kind of fun. Yeah, out there in the middle of the darn Pacific or Atlantic Ocean. How you been? What's going on?
I'm doing pretty good. My bowel comes out. You know, I have trouble with that again.
How much is it prolapsing? What percent?
It it comes out quite a bit. It fills the bag halfway.
Well, have you had a consult to see what you can do about that?
The only thing that he could do is remove my large intestine altogether,
Uh-huh.
and then I'd have a smaller bag, which would alleviate pretty much all the problem with my large intestine because it um, continues to grow and be toxic because he said it's a toxic megacolon, so it's really nothing more he can do except remove the whole thing, and that's a pretty lengthy um, surgery.
Is that your choice, or is this something you imminently would need to get done?
He's not really saying, but that's a pretty serious and extensive surgery if I would need that done.
Yeah.
He's trying to hold off as long as he can with that, but it might become a necessity in time because I can't really do a whole lot.
I know.
He wants to know, I sent him a picture. He wanted to know how much it prolapses. So I don't know what the alternative is other than removing it altogether.
Oh, gee.
Because it's not reversible, he says. He claims it's not reversible.
It probably isn't. How about what else? Yeah, on a lighter note, how about getting? Did you get us any more guests?
I'm working on it.
That's good. How about your mom? How's she doing?
She's doing good.
Hanging in there?
Yeah, she's doing pretty good. We planted 16 tomato plants. She put 16 tomato plants in.
16. Jeez, you're going to be making a lot of tomato soup.
Plus, we got a lot of little ones coming up from last year. We got from seed.
Lots.
Because I threw rotten tomatoes in.
Yeah. Oh, then they came up from the seed.
Yeah, they're about this big now.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Well, we can, we've had the humidity. Now we need the rain. So.
We do need the rain. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. Well,
where am I going to put all these? I said, we'll find room. Just buy them.
I'll pick up some of those tomatoes if you don't use them.
Yeah, we got beefsteak. We got Better Boy, Big Boy, Romas, pineapple. We have Red Husky. We have Early Girls.
Holy smokes. You may as well go down to the supermarket and start peddling them away.
I made some salsa the other day.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. That looked pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I gave my neighbor up the street a quart of it. What, Mom? Or a pint of it. What? You have to come get some.
I will. How's your buddy that you used to co-host with? Is he going to run with us anymore?
He said in a couple weeks, he said.
Good for him. He was fun.
He was, yeah.
Yeah. He was super duper excited.
He reminds me a lot like you.
Really? You know,
as far as your knowledge,
what's that?
As far as your knowledge and your willingness to be a host.
Oh, it's fun. You know who I wanted to get that we didn't get? There's two guys we missed on. The graphologist guy would have been fun. The handwriting guy. And that exorcist guy, what happened to him? He never, guy never responded to you. That's terrible.
I'm not sure what happened with that.
Huh.
He said he got the message. Well, I said, I showed him the Skype conversation he and I had.
Right.
He said he got a message.
Interesting.
I don't think he wanted to be on, to tell you the truth. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
He might not have. Who knows? That's that ego thing. People let their degrees and all this crap go to their head. Yeah, I've always had a suspicion that the people that actually know something
Yeah.
don't say anything.
You're exactly
It's
right.
all us fools that talk
It is,
that don't know much at all.
you ever hear of the Vincent sisters?
Yes, the Vincent. We actually used them at one point years ago at two psychic parties, and one of which was to try to find our lost cat, which they did hit on putting the cat in the yard, but we couldn't get the cat back. But
We did. Go ahead.
they're pretty good though. The Vincent's. Is it the Vincent sisters? I believe. Did you know that the Vincent sisters were responsible for breaking the famous uh, case down in Florida with that Kaylee Lee Anthony girl?
Oh yeah.
They were the ones that were called by Florida detectives and officials to aid them in finding the little girl's body, which they presumed was deceased and missing. And they pointed them to the area a couple miles down the road, off on the side of the road, in a swampy, marshy area where she was covered in duct tape and black bags, and they discovered the body. They were the ones that broke it from up here, Butler, Pennsylvania. The Vincent sisters. Yep. Actually, if you go on her website, they mention that case.
Well, Mom, what was her name? What was the girl from Butler that was missing back in the early 90s? I can't remember.
Did they help figure that out?
They never did completely. I mean, they helped out on it. I think they got hit. They got some hits on it, but they still didn't solve the case of where she's at or how she got murdered or whatever.
Yeah, that's terrible.
What's her name, Mom? They think she might be alive, but they're not sure.
I don't want to think about what she's doing alive with whoever she's with. Those people.
What was her name? I can't remember her name now. Over. She lived out in Clearfield Township. What was her name? I'll think of it later. But anyways, they were working on that case. They were contacted. But we did a gallery reading at an event that they had, and Mom had asked questions, and they had told her. They said, "You already know the answers." They wouldn't say nothing. She said, "We already know the answers."
Oh, that doesn't help. That's no fun. Let's have a psychic party and ask the psychic, and what do they tell you? You already know the answers. That doesn't really help.
I haven't very impressed with them ever since then.
Interesting. Oh my.
And we know them personally, and I wasn't really impressed with
Oh,
them.
really? You know them? Did you go to their church? I know they go to church.
Yeah, not personally. We met them a few times, and we became.
Yeah, I see.
We talked.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. They would do. They drive all the way down here to Pittsburgh. Actually, they'll do shows and things. At these little shops, these psychic shops and stuff like that. So, but
they won't come on this show. I've asked them a couple times, and they
why?
They won't come on.
Why?
I don't know why.
Interesting. Huh.
We were supposed to, all the vendors got together at a local restaurant some years back after the paranormal conference that they were at, and they pretty much sent us away.
Really?
From their tables.
Wow.
Yeah. It was weird.
That is weird.
Yeah, I didn't get a very good impression of them at all. But I do have a psychic coming on my show or our show. Well, I got to get him scheduled. I met him at the paranormal conference. He was really, really good.
Was he really?
Yeah.
What's his name? Obviously he's from around here.
Yeah, he's from Butler. What was his name, Mom? Not sure. I'll have to get
Well,
you his information.
we got to get our readings done.
Yeah. My aunt talked to him at the paranormal conference. She's like, "Oh my gosh, is he good?"
Good. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
We'll have to get him on, and I'll have to get go to some websites and get people scheduled.
I'll be there. You know what's funny? I'm going to make an admission. I forgot about tonight. You sent me that email a little late, and we hadn't had a guest in a while. And I literally got on my phone about 10 to 7, and I saw your real stream on there, and I went, oh no, I forgot about the show. I says, I got to get to my studio, which is out in the car, you know. But we made it happen. That's awesome. He was a good guy. Good guy. Young guy, which sometimes is interesting. He was learning too, trying to figure things out. I think it's a lot of work if you're honest with yourself, but it's fun doing it, you know. But
you gotta get the bio to Michael at some point too. We can ask him to pick up on
I do. Yeah, I will do that. I just got to find a picture that's that's partially representative of what I actually look like, and I'll write up a little bio thing too. You know, we'll put it on there too. So, all right, my friend, I'm gonna get back to the kids. I gotta cook something up for them, and do my thing as a dad, and then go back to work tomorrow morning.
Stop over and see us. I'll make you some salsa and we'll have some chips.
If you don't mind, I'll stop in on a whim every once in a while just to check in on you, especially when I'm driving down those streets.
Okay.
I'll just pop in.
Anytime. Stop by.
Especially since the weather's getting nice. You know, I got to try those tomatoes out.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, you have a good night. All right.
Yeah, if you're in the neighborhood this week, stop by.
I will do that. Yeah, I'll do that.
So I'll make some more salsa. We'll have a party.
Sounds good. I'll take you up on that offer.
All right, buddy.
Be good. Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you, Dave.
All right. I'll be waiting for your lineup.
Okay. I'll be scheduling soon.
I'll see you. Bye.
All right. Good night.
Tell your mom good night. All right.
Oh, good night. So catch you later, buddy.
See ya.
See you. Well, folks, that was Brennan Densmore and co-host Damon. Well, we're going to end the show a little bit early, and I'll get some guests lined up and get the postings up on Supernatural Realm Radio Facebook page and my personal page as well. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Supernatural Realm on the VARA Radio Network. And we're going to say goodbye and play some commercials and end the show out. So, good night, everybody. Have a great night. Yeah, hold on, Mommy.
This is author Edwin F. Becker. My success with 1-800-RENT-A-GHOST has been such that I have a whole new enterprise. It is for those that are out there thinking, man, I can't wait for that zombie apocalypse. Well, I have the answer for you. Dial 1-800-OWN-A-ZOMBIE. You'll be the center of attention wherever you go. What a surprise those Jehovah's Witnesses will get when they knock on your door. Are you the black sheep of the family? Just think of the terror you can bring to the next family gathering. I'll bet you never knew fat old Uncle Ned could jump tables and run so fast. Or take your zombie to the next high school reunion. Have you ever seen a zombie twerk or do the Harlem Shake? And then go after all those a-holes that made fun of you in high school. A-hole. Laid off from your executive job? Take your special friend to the boardroom to help you say farewell to your boss. You will add a whole new meaning to budget cuts. Neighbors giving you a problem making noise? Introduce them to your new pal and stand back, because all will be quiet very soon.
Hey guys, this is my zombie.
You'll be waiting for the next a-hole to look at you and say, "Bite me," because anyone who gives you the finger really does give you the finger. Dial 1-800-OWN-A-ZOMBIE. Order now and get the new book, Sewing on Limbs Can Be Creative. Not responsible for infectious disease, death, mayhem, severed limbs, cannibalism, paranoia, loss of sanity, nor that god-awful stench. And one more thing, there will be no returns.
You're listening to the VARA Network.
My name's Joe Biden. No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman. And so we have to just change the culture and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it.
I'm cuckoo, I'm cuckoo.
Just when I came to the United States Senate 120 years ago, I promise you, the president has a big stick. I mean, he has made clear that, my name's Joe Biden. I keep forgetting I'm president.
Mommy, look at the pretty snow cloud in the sky.
Shut up! We got a moron here. Is that it?
Kind of makes you wonder, huh?
You're listening to the VARA Network.
Does evil exist? And if so, can one detect and measure it? I'm sorry, come again?
If you interrupt me again, it's not going to go well.
You're starting to piss me off.
You don't know what this was. There's a lot more where that came from, too.
Hey, frequencies of all walks of life. Keep up with all things TLF Radio by joining our mailing list. Go to the bottom of the homepage and fill in the form. You'll get everything from guest info and show info and other important station-related information. So sign up now.
How many supervisors do you want me to speak to that can't help me?
Or screw with my computer again, you'll be arrested.
I got trouble right here waiting for you.
Did you ever take a dump made you feel like you just slept for 12 hours?
Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
You're listening to the VARA Network.
Let's go, Brandon. Hey. Let's go, Brandon. Hey. Let's go.
Hey, frequencies everywhere. Let the world know how you feel. Slide into a brand new Let's Go Brandon t-shirt. The crowds in stadiums around the country have expressed their mutual feelings about the current administration, and now you can make a statement by wearing one of our Let's Go Brandon t-shirts. Go to www.lastfrequency.com, click on the shop tab, and let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Hey, frequencies of all walks of life. Keep up with all things TLF Radio by joining our mailing list. Go to the bottom of the homepage and fill in the form. You'll get everything from guest info and show info and other important station-related information. So sign up now.
Frequencies around the world. Listen up. The shop is here, and you can order TLF radio swag right now and show your friends and neighbors you're awake by wearing one of our many shirts, including our Let's Go Brandon shirt. That one is a hot seller, so get yours while supplies last. We have coffee mugs, clocks, so never miss your favorite shows, books, mouse pads. Just go to thelastfrequency.com and click the shop link. That's thelastfrequency.com and get to shopping.
Don't forget to hit the donate button on the way out. That will help The Last Frequency stay on the air. Just go to lastfrequency.com and send some good frequencies our way. Or take advantage of one of our subscription levels designed to help fund what is free for all. The Last Frequency Radio.
It's like every...
You're listening to the VARA Network. You're listening to the VARA Network. Hey, frequencies of all walks of life. Keep up with all things TLF Radio by joining our mailing list. Go to the bottom of the homepage and fill in the form. You'll get everything from guest info and show info and other important station-related information. So sign up now. You're listening to the VARA Network. You're listening to the VARA Network.
This is author Edwin F. Becker. My success with 1-800-RENT-A-GHOST has been such that I have a whole new enterprise. It is for those that are out there thinking, man, I can't wait for that zombie apocalypse. Well, I have the answer for you. Dial 1-800-OWN-A-ZOMBIE. You'll be the center of attention wherever you go. What a surprise those Jehovah's Witnesses will get when they knock on your door. Are you the black sheep of the family? Just think of the terror you can bring to the next family gathering. I'll bet you never knew fat old Uncle Ned could jump tables and run so fast. Or take your zombie to the next high school reunion. Have you ever seen a zombie twerk or do the Harlem Shake?
Timber! Timber! Level out, Timber! 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 Level out, Timber! 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 Timber!
What was that? I don't know, man.
Timber!